Carrie-Anne from years ago when we both used to live in Brooklyn at the same time. And actually the two of us are here today in France.
Marseille.
In the various years that I've known Carrie-Anne, she's been the head of a lot of bands, she's started a whole bunch of art projects, and she's done so many very interesting things. I thought you would make a great interview for my second interview ever.
Thank you, I hope not to disappoint. Cheers.
Cheers. Pastis. Since we're in France together, actually one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because you were, I think, one of the first people I knew who started doing this, but just traveling alone as a woman and not being afraid of doing that.
Well, I mean, I am always afraid. I mean, but I think I realized at some certain point that I would never get to really travel unless I did it alone. And I love traveling alone. And taking my time doing whatever I need to do or what to do.
And so when did you get started on this?
I did a tour in France and a couple of other stops. I was with other people for the majority of the time, but I did add a few days at the beginning that were just me, just so I could see how that would go, because I do play music solo already anyway, and it felt like it opened up a whole other dimension of my personality that I didn't necessarily know was there. I had a lot of really unique opportunities that allowed me to experience elements of the culture that I wouldn't have experienced as a traveler normally. And I think since then I've been going back to seek new experiences that have the same level of intimacy with cultures as I was lucky enough to find in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's been a really fun and intense ride over the years.
Actually, that discovering a new part of yourself. I think one of the things that I also like about traveling alone is not just that, it can be other people, but that, there is something about being forced to not be distracted by your partner, and that gives you this more immersive experience. But I guess I wanted to hear your take on just like what you kind of discovered about yourself by doing this.
I mean, I think at the very least I learned how to be more mindful in general and how to be more present in the moment, and that's something that New York life definitely does not teach. And I don't know that that would necessarily happen everywhere I would travel, because it does require a certain level of feeling safe that in certain other places where I've traveled it's been harder to achieve. I've not been engaging too much risky behavior.
Maybe to start someone off who is, a woman who is thinking about solo travel, I guess what would be a top 1 or 2 safety tips?
Sending somebody off for the first time is something that I've been around a lot, because I also host for Airbnb at my house in New York, and so I think there are certain moments for a lot of travelers when if you have a safe space, you just stick to it and you freeze there, and I've seen that happen a lot. So I guess first of all, the thing is to be aware of that tendency and to realize that you might be exaggerating in your mind any exterior elements of danger. Obvious things like staying alert and not keeping your bags in obvious places. But there's also not looking scared and trying to blend in with the culture a little bit as well as you can, which, for some of us tattooed pink-haired people is never easy, but even in just behavior or whatever, that also is fun when you're learning to engage with a culture on that level.
Yeah, I guess it does help you become a much better observer of people when you go to a different culture and try to at least acclimate yourself to it. Obviously, there's certain things that we may never look like the locals in some place that we travel to, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's really great for us to have the opportunity to go to places that don't look like us.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's 3 things there. There's that measure of confidence, of just being able to carry yourself like you belong somewhere. Makes a huge difference as to who approaches you and who says weird things to you. Right? And then second is making sure that all of your precious belongings, your money, your camera is in some place that's not easy to snatch away from you, because nothing ruins an experience like losing your wallet or passport or camera.
This is well verified.
Yeah. I guess third is actually doing some of the things that the locals do, right?
Right, and yeah, I mean, there's avoiding danger and then there's being avoided. And knowing the difference, it's a trial and error process, and sometimes you might get into some situations that are a little scary, and every time, if you live, which is most likely,
most of the time you'll live, so take it from us.
Yeah, most of the time you live. I've lived every single time, and
so far
felt stronger for it. So yeah,
cheers to living every single time so far. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is you're here in France and I'm here visiting you, but you're not really here on vacation. You are here as part of a language course because a couple of years ago you decided to start studying French.
Yeah, you know, it didn't take long after my first trip to France to realize I wanted to learn French. That sort of came around in that month that I was traveling with the group and listening to the chauffeur and the other French speakers in the group speak with each other. And at some certain point, I started being able to pick up the music of the language a little bit, and it started just becoming very beautiful to me. And when I realized that that was something I was capable of, and I was in my mid-30s, I knew enough and I'd researched enough about neuroplasticity to realize that that was a good way to keep sharp, to keep young. And so I started studying it.
I remember, I guess when I was a kid, or maybe not even when I was a kid, there's always been this thought that the older you are, the harder it is for you to learn a language, so why try?
That is true. That is true, but the why try part, there are really good answers to that. And one of them is how good it is for your neurological health. It gave me a lot of empathy, I think, for people who have immigrated to the United States. And wow, to put yourself through that, you must really want it.
Yeah, absolutely. Immigrants, we learn languages. And while you're pursuing these courses during the summer here, you are also doing the same for your undergraduate degree in the United States.
Right. So I dropped out of my undergraduate program in the early 2000s. I had a big mental crisis, whatever, and decided to leave and go live a bohemian lifestyle, you know, as one does. I became a chef and did all these other things. I assume that at some point it will make sense looking back. I decided to go back to school when I lost my job. And I had unemployment benefits, and there's this program through the state where they will help you with your education. Continuing my education was the secular form of a blessing. The first thing that comes to mind is that I have much more faith in the world right now, actually, because I have a lot of exposure to younger people that aren't burned out, are so much more woke than I was at that age, etc., and have so much promise, and it's just been really wonderful to be around them. Also, going back to school has really, at this age, is a really wonderful experience because every stupid fact that they give you is so fascinating because you can contextualize it in so many ways you couldn't when you were young. So in the end, it's pretty easy, because it just comes naturally to, you're just learning. When I was young, that was a very stressful situation, anxiety ridden and full of self-doubt and everything like that. And now I'm just cocky and happy.
I know more than all of you.
Yes. Let me tell you about the 90s. So I was in a job for about 9 years in the last 10 years that I thought was going to continue for the rest of my life because I'm a fool. That's not how the world works, it turns out. Not anymore.
Well, yeah, we're in the millennial age, right? There's no such thing as a steady career. That actually segues into another topic that I wanted to talk to you about, and it's that you started this secret women's health forum on a platform that will not be named. It's a secret, but it's now something like 5,000 people strong, and I think one of the things that we can go into a little bit is just well, first of all, the struggles that women have with their health and why you started the forum.
So I had a gynecological health crisis after the first time I visited France. I started getting exterior symptoms of endometriosis. It's often asymptomatic, but for me it manifested as severe, basically pelvic spasms, sort of like giving birth pain, that would last as long as 3 days at a time. And it was terrifying, and I had no idea that 1 in 10 women has this disease. I started talking about it with the people around me when I got home, and I realized that a bunch of people were really silently suffering with either that or PCOS or any number of diseases and questions, and also that doctors are not educated enough about, which I learned and which I know many other women have learned, going from doctor to doctor and getting just the most crazy variety of responses to the same question.
Right.
I eventually was able to use the forum to get recommendations for a surgeon for my endometriosis, and I'm doing well now. There are all kinds of stories like that are coming out of this forum that really warm my heart. And there have been all kinds of offshoots from that group because women have been kept as number 2 of the genders for some time, and that has inhibited our expression. I look at it like a mommy or something, or like, my son's gone off to college, I'm so proud of him.
One of the things that has been very interesting being on this forum, basically since it was started by you, has been seeing, first of all, how much I didn't realize that I was keeping silent about my own health problems. Usually if something happened to me, I'd hate going to the doctor, so I would just not go to the doctor and assume that that's something that happened to everyone.
Yeah,
and,
same.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about the forum and people asking constantly, hey, is this normal? The doctor told me this. Has anyone else had an experience with that? Why can't I solve this? Helps, well, first of all, normalize talking about your health, not even on the forum, just offline as well, but also just to advocate for yourself.
And that's the huge thing. Advocating for yourself is really hard, especially when you get in a room with somebody who has a vastly greater amount of education than you and a dismissive attitude. It's really important these days, unfortunately, to go in entirely armed. And it's also difficult to go in armed without terrifying yourself. And that's why it's really good to get information from person to person rather than just Googling things. That's what I think kept me from freaking out. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're a woman or somebody who basically doesn't identify as a cis man, it sounds like something that could be a resource to you, just email me. Yeah, and we'll figure out a way to add you in. I'm pretty happy with where I am now as a person, but sometimes I will think back to what I was like when I was in college or just about to go to college, actually any part of my late teens, early 20s, and just feel like, God, if I had only known this or that, it would have been so much easier for me. And so I guess one of the things I'm going to be asking all of my guests is, if you had a piece of advice that you could offer yourself when you were 20, what would it be?
I'm a big proponent, actually, of living in regret. I think anybody who lives without it is probably lacking empathy, but it's also a positive thing in the end, I think, to learn to have empathy for yourself. And the only way you can learn to do that is to really understand yourself and to really understand the context in which you're existing. And if you want to, for instance, help the world, you need to understand the forces that have been acting upon you and how you reacted to them. It doesn't mean you need to be mad at yourself exactly, but if you want to change the world, I think you really need to look back and see how your life could have been better and what you can do now to help other people to keep from repeating your mistakes. I personally, if I was to go back to 20, would just never have really started drinking. And I know I'm drinking right now. But I think I wasted so much of my life that way, and I would be so much more useful to society if I hadn't spent my entire 20s wasted. I did some really cool things too. I'm a cool chick, but that's not exactly my motivation in life, and I'd really give all of that up just to have been aware and present and mentally healthy. And that's complicated. And back then, you know, I'm 40 now, and back then, 20 years ago, mental health was a very different conversation.
You know, that actually reminds me of some factoid that I read somewhere that Gen Z now drinks a lot less than previous generations.
Way to go, dudes.
Yeah, I wonder though if that's because there's things like therapy and medication available so you don't learn to self-medicate instead.
That and the constant eye of the state watching you. You know, I mean, getting over things.
Yeah. Oh, I can't drink too much or my social credit score will go down.
Or somebody's gonna post something embarrassing on the internet. Yeah.
All right. Well, Carrie-Anne, we've talked a bit about all the things that you're up to right now, but it's just a little piece of the Carrie-Anne collage. And so, what other things are you doing?
I'm still pursuing music. I'm in a rock band called H-U-H. I have a solo project still. It's experimental R&B called Clapper Claw. All my older stuff that I produced is Bad Credit, No Credit, the band, the Sunday Fantastique show, which was a short-lived public television show in New York.
Yeah, links will be in the description as always. If you found this useful or interesting in any way, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.